I'm not sure who needs to hear this, but we all live in a matrix, and it's not the one you think. The matrix I speak of is not an external force, something out there that threatens us. It's a series of invisible webs that have been woven into our minds since birth. And these are webs of fear, habit, and distraction. They're the hidden structures of conditioning that keep us from fully experiencing life and prevent us from becoming the people we want to be. You see, we were taught a story about reality, and most of us accepted it without question. We believed that our lives were set for us, pre-programmed by circumstances beyond our control. But let me ask you this. How many of us really accept the idea that our consciousness is being manipulated by unseen forces or by messages that we can't even perceive? Well, the truth is, they're there, embedded in everything from the news we watch to the conversations we have to the very air we breathe. These forces work through a process called unconscious conditioning. Think of it as mental suggestions that guide your behavior without your conscious awareness. Now, this isn't some far-fetched conspiracy theory. This is real. It's been studied and used for decades by those who seek to influence and control populations. For example, did you know that emotions like fear and anger can be triggered remotely in large groups of people through carefully crafted messaging? Or that habits, both good and bad, can also be formed at a distance by manipulating your environment? These are just a few examples of how the matrix operates. But the good news is that once you understand how it works, you can start to break free. You see, the matrix thrives on your inaction. It feeds on your fear of change and uncertainty. But the moment you become aware, the moment you start asking questions, the power of the matrix over you begins to diminish. So my friends, I encourage you to keep watching, because today we will dive deep into this phenomenon. We will explore how this invisible matrix operates, how it impacts your daily life, and most importantly, how you can break free from its clutches. Trust me, the journey will be challenging, but the reward will be immense. You will reclaim your life, your thoughts, and your future. And along the way, you might just discover a strength within yourself that you never knew existed. Now, before we go further, I want to remind you that the ideas shared in this video are not meant to replace professional advice or treatment. If you're struggling with emotional or mental health challenges, please reach out to a qualified mental health professional. But if you're simply curious about understanding your own mind and how it interacts with the world around you, then this video is for you. Let's start by addressing the elephant in the room. What do I mean when I say we live in a matrix? In simple terms, the matrix I'm referring to is the sum of all the beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors that have been instilled in us from childhood. It's the invisible programming that influences how we think, how we feel, and how we act without our conscious awareness. This programming begins at a very young age through our upbringing and early life experiences. As children, we absorb information from our surroundings like sponges. Our parents, teachers, and peers shape our understanding of the world through their words, actions, and expectations. Over time, these inputs become part of our subconscious programming, guiding our thoughts and behaviors without us even realizing it. As we grow older, this programming continues through the media we consume, the information we're exposed to, and the social groups we associate with. Each new experience adds another layer to this mental architecture, reinforcing certain beliefs and limiting others. This programming forms the foundation of what I call the matrix. So, how does this matrix affect us? Well, it creates a sense of reality that may not be entirely accurate. It can lead us to believe things that are not true, or to behave in ways that do not align with our true desires and values. For example, many of us were conditioned to believe that we're inherently competitive creatures. We were told that in order to succeed, we need to beat out other people, or that life is a zero-sum game where one person's gain is another person's loss. But is this really true? Or is it just a belief system that has been programmed into us through societal conditioning? Another common belief instilled in us from a young age is that happiness comes from external sources. We're told that if we achieve certain milestones like getting a job, buying a house or getting married, then we'll finally be happy. But how often does this actually happen? How often do we find ourselves still seeking happiness even after achieving these milestones? This is because the source of happiness, true and lasting happiness, comes from within. It's a state of mind that can be cultivated through practices like meditation and mindfulness. The Matrix also conditions us to accept a certain level of suffering and dissatisfaction in our lives. We are led to believe that pain and discomfort are inevitable parts of the human experience and that we should just learn to tolerate them. But is this really the case? Or is it possible to live a life free from unnecessary suffering? The truth is that we have the power to choose how we respond to the adversities of life. We can choose to see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than as sources of suffering. In essence, the Matrix keeps us trapped in a limited reality, preventing us from seeing the world and ourselves in a more expansive and empowering way. But the good news is that once we become aware of the Matrix, we can begin to question the programming that confines us. We can start to see the world not as we've been told to, but as it truly is, full of infinite possibilities and potential. So how can we escape this matrix and live a life that's more authentic and fulfilling? First, we must become aware of the matrix. We need to recognize that our thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors have been shaped by external influences, and that these influences don't always align with our true selves. Once we acknowledge this, we can start to question the programming that confines us. Next, we must start to observe our thoughts without judgment. We need to learn to recognize the difference between our true thoughts and the thoughts that have been implanted in us through conditioning. This can be done through practices like meditation and mindfulness. By observing our thoughts, we can start to identify the ones that don't serve us and let go of them. Finally, we must be willing to change. Escaping the matrix requires a willingness to step outside of our comfort zones and to challenge our existing beliefs and behaviors. It means embracing uncertainty and taking risks, but the rewards of doing so are immeasurable. By following these steps, we can start to free ourselves from the constraints of the matrix and create a life that's more authentic and fulfilling. It won't be easy, but the journey will be worth it. And remember, you're not alone. There are countless others who are also seeking to break free from the matrix and live a life of freedom and authenticity. Connect with them, support each other, and celebrate each other's successes. Together, you can create a ripple effect that breaks the chains of conditioning and creates a better future for yourselves and for generations to come. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a powerful quote from the philosopher Alan Watts. He said, "There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path." This quote reminds us that happiness is not something we find at the end of a journey. It's something we create with every step we take. It's a mindset that we cultivate in the present moment. So as you move forward on your journey to escaping the matrix, remember to find joy in each step, no matter how small. Celebrate the progress you make, no matter how incremental. And trust that the path you're on, however uncertain it may seem, is leading you towards a greater sense of freedom and authenticity. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope this video has been insightful and that you feel empowered to take the next step towards creating the life you truly desire. If you found value in this content, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe and share with those who might benefit. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.